Chrissy Teigen recently went after Bernie Sanders on Twitter, and it was specifically in response to a tweet that Bernie Sanders shared that included a political article regarding centrist Democrats who are now warming up to Elizabeth Warren. Now, the reason why he shared that piece is because sprinkled throughout are quotes indicating that these individuals want to basically support Warren as an alternative to Bernie Sanders. They have an issue with Bernie Sanders and some of his economic policies and the fact that he calls himself a democratic socialist. So he wrote via Twitter, the cat is out of the bag. The corporate wing of the Democratic Party is publicly anybody but Bernie. They know our progressive agenda of Medicare for all, breaking up big banks, taking on drug companies, and raising wages is the real threat to the billionaire class. Okay, so again, the article that he referenced in that tweet was from Politico, and it says centrists are coming around to Elizabeth Warren as an alternative to Bernie Sanders. Okay, great.
So before we go on to Teigen's critique here, she didn't like that tweet, as you'll see. If Bernie Sanders had said, aha, Elizabeth Warren is a sellout and she wants to work with the corporate Democrats, that would have been wrong.
That is not what she,
but that is not what he said, okay? And remember, Elizabeth Warren didn't ask for the endorsement of centrist Democrats or third way. They're just volunteering like, oh, we like Warren better than we like Bernie Sanders. Yeah, well, that's a low bar for them because they despise Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Now, if on the other hand, Bernie Sanders is saying what he seems to be saying, which is, I'm a rock, and these centrist Democrats, corporate Democrats, et cetera, are never gonna be able to move me, and they know it. That's why they're the most opposed to me. That is a fair point. So now Teigen doesn't think it is apparently, and so she responds.
So as I mentioned in that article are a number of quotes by third way representatives. And just to give you a sense of how much third way is against Bernie Sanders, the VP for Third Way and also a co-founder, Matt Bennett, has been quoted as saying the following: the exception is Senator Bernie Sanders. We're open to everybody except for him. Right? So I just want to give you that context, it's important. Now, Chrissy Teigen responded to Bernie Sanders' tweet by saying, this is not a good tweet. And that was it.
Okay,
but so why? What's wrong with the tweet? Like, do you have, let's go back to what Bernie Sanders said in the tweet. The cat is out of the bag. The corporate wing of the Democratic Party is publicly anybody but Bernie.
That's true.
Yep. They know our progressive agenda of Medicare for all, breaking up big banks, taking on drug companies, and raising wages is the real threat to the billionaire class. So what part of that tweet is not a good tweet? I'm very curious. Anyway,
I don't get it. The only thing that I can think about is maybe she thought that Bernie was implying that Elizabeth Warren wouldn't do that, but he didn't say that in the tweet.
He didn't attack Elizabeth Warren at all.
Like, yeah, and so, and if you're gonna imply that he said that, you should make it clearer because this is not a good tweet.
Her tweet is not a good tweet.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, it at a minimum, it sounds like she's saying we shouldn't break up the big banks and we should
raise wages.
We shouldn't raise wages, and you know what? Drug prices are awesome. I doubt she believes that because I think that she's a solid progressive in other ways.
We don't know that. I don't know what her politics are.
I know she's against Trump, that's for sure.
I mean, come on. I mean, there are some Republicans who are against Trump. Trump is terrible, right? Being against Trump doesn't make you a progressive. Look, the follow-up tweet that she had to it, and this is directly a tweet to Bernie, said, you're getting a lot of crap from this, even from people that like you, that says something. But I looked through the tweets and I saw some of the hate, but it's not from people who typically like Bernie Sanders. So I don't know what that was about, but someone responded to her and I think this might hit the nail on the head. I could be wrong, I'm speculating obviously. But one person said, weird that a super wealthy person is against the old Jewish man saying they need to pay taxes. He also says, also weird that the extreme privileged person who buddies up to people who say slavery was a choice and buddy up with Trump would be out here attacking the only progressive candidate.
No, there's a lot I disagree with on that. He's not the only progressive candidate, but more importantly, Chrissy Teigen does not buddy up to Trump. No, she attacks him pretty viciously.
She does.
So look, you could say, I hear you, Bill Kristol also doesn't like Trump and he's a terrible neoconservative, but Teigen has never shown that she's in that camp. And I think that maybe I'm wrong, and just superficially, I feel like I've seen her fight for other folks in the past. That's why I was surprised by this. It just felt like it came out of the blue. And then I don't like his reference to the Jewish person because Teigen didn't say anything about him being Jewish.
No, I know. Look, the reason why I brought up that tweet wasn't because I agreed with everything that he put in there. But remember, we're talking about someone who does have quite a bit of wealth. And someone like Bernie Sanders openly speaks out against millionaires and billionaires. And I'm sure that that rubs people who are considerably wealthy the wrong way. Now, usually he's referring to Wall Street CEOs who game the system to their advantage, but who knows? There were other things that she tweeted that stood out to me. So for instance, she said, Bernie supporters will be the downfall of Bernie. I don't even hate him, but you guys are absolutely insufferable. Do him a favor and stop being so combative against Democratic criticism.
Okay, see, now that's where she lost me entirely. And then that infuriated me enough that I then tweeted in response to that. But so here, guys, now, look, first of all, look at the lack of logic in that. Why are you guys so insufferable to other Democratic criticism? So it's like saying, why don't you just let us punch you in the face?
Exactly.
Why are you so insufferable that you won't take us punching you in the face repeatedly like a good person and surrender? No, you are the original aggressor in that, the way you framed it, right? We're in that tweet, she's saying the Democratic criticism, you should just lie down and take it. No, we don't have to lie down and take it. That's such a weird thing to say. And shouldn't you be concerned about the original aggressors? If you're concerned about lack of civility or lack of unity in the Democratic Party, shouldn't you be tweeting about Bernie Sanders' Democratic critics? Saying, hey guys, what are you doing? We're trying to fight against Donald Trump here. What are you attacking a fellow Democrat like Bernie Sanders for? Instead, she goes, good, attack Bernie Sanders. And you guys are not allowed to counterattack, and you guys are not allowed to respond. And look at the framing. So man, that tweet was awful. She said, I don't even hate Bernie Sanders. Well, congratulations. Okay, well that is mighty Christian of you. Okay, I'm kidding about the use of that phrase. So that's not much to say I don't hate him. I prefer the other ones that are more establishment, that are more corporate. And so I don't know, if you want to say that, own up to it. Say, hey, you know what? He's too progressive for me. I don't want wages to be that high. Or look, I'm putting words in your mouth, and that's not fair. But say, hey, I'm not for Medicare for all, or I'm not for Green New Deal. Be specific about it. But to say that no one should ever answer when Bernie Sanders is constantly attacked, and that's the other thing. I'm going to say Chrissy as if she's watching this. Chrissy, do you not see the nonstop attacks against Bernie Sanders in the mainstream media? But you do. You even acknowledge it in the tweet. So what do you want people to do? So there's no, and the reason why we're even doing this story, it's not just about Chrissy Teigen. Of course, look, she's an interesting person, and so a lot of people do follow her. But no, it's about the overall point that Bernie Sanders supporters are put in an impossible position. They say, not only are we going to attack you and your candidate nonstop, but you are not allowed to even answer that critique. If you do, then you're insufferable. I would argue that the people doing the nonstop unfair attacks in the first place are the ones that are insufferable.